Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to say welcome to our presentation, and thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us. My name is Trip Warren. I am the Service Area 3 School Nutrition Consultant. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Jennifer Brown. She is the Service Area 1 School Nutrition Consultant. And she and I are going to present the what, why, when, and how of menu certification. This will be an introduction to a new, a new simplified menu certification process that we'll use here in North Carolina from this point forward. I would like to start off by saying that for those of you who have USDA approved software, you may use your USDA approved software to create meal component worksheets that will document and indicate that daily and weekly menu components are met for all of your planned menus. You may also use USDA approved software for the nutrient analysis. The USDA tool that we're going to review today is primarily for those folks who do not have access to that software, and that is all. We are no longer going to be using the meal component and quantity worksheets that we have used in the past. We are going to now use the USDA tool. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. We are taking questions today. I would ask that you use the chat feature. The chat feature is going to be monitored. And this presentation is not that long, so it's sort of brief. So we will go through the presentation, and we will answer questions at the end, please. During that time, it may also be possible for us to open up microphones. Everybody is currently muted so that we can keep background noise to a minimum. So thank you for that. This presentation is being recorded and will be put on our website at some point in the very near future. So with that, let's get started. Jennifer, are you able to? There we go. Thank you, because I'm unable to advance slides like before.
Okay.
Oh, I do see take control. Jennifer, we can try that if you like.
Okay.
Let me do that real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So our agenda today is to go over the certification process. We're going to talk about what menu certification is, why menu certification is important, why we've chosen to simplify this process. We'll also discuss when menu certification should be completed. We'll talk about how you complete menu certification, and then we'll also talk about how often you complete it. Thank you, Jennifer. I think we may need to do that from this point forward as well. So let's talk about what menu certification is. Excuse me. In 2010, the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act was signed into law under the Obama administration. And the purpose was to tackle childhood hunger and improve the nutritional well-being of school children. We were introduced to new nutrition standards. We were also asked to include increasing fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins into our menu planning. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act also initially provided an additional 6 cents for each lunch meal that was served to school food authorities who were certified, and there's that word certified, to be in compliance with the new meal patterns. That began in 2012. School food authorities since that time who have maintained compliance with meal requirements continue to receive that additional reimbursement. We do that annually by attestation. Many of you are familiar with signing an attestation that says you attest that you are in compliance with the meal pattern, and that's the 2010 Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act meal pattern. And we also verify that when we're doing our administrative reviews every 5 years. It is a requirement that you submit a meal component worksheet of some sort. And just to let you know that the 6 cents is no longer what the performance-based reimbursement rate is. It is now currently 9 cents for each reimbursable lunch.
I went too far.
So let's talk about
okay.
where we're coming from. Oops, excuse me. We
Sorry,
went too far. Let's talk about what the menu certification process was. Or we'll talk about why it's important real quick.
Sorry, Trip.
Menu certification is important because that is your documentation that demonstrates compliance with the USDA meal pattern and the nutrition standards. Pardon me. It's also necessary in order to continue receiving the performance-based reimbursement of 9 cents per lunch meal. Let's talk about where we came from. When we first started the menu certification process, we developed a meal component and quantity worksheet. Those meal component and quantity worksheets were used by school food authorities to document meal patterns meals that were served for all different grade groups and menu planning options. And prior to the administrative review, those meal component and quantity worksheets were turned in to the administrative review lead and to nutrition consultants too at the time. The process is also required of new sponsors or potential sponsors. Before sponsors are allowed on the program, they must demonstrate the ability to plan compliant meals. So potential sponsors would have their menus certified by using meal component quantity worksheets and also using a nutrient analysis by using the software that's USDA approved. Once those materials were turned in, they would be reviewed, and we could verify that compliance was present, and we could certify those menus as being compliant, and the additional reimbursement could also be awarded at that time. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, and she's going to talk about why we're simplifying the process. Jennifer?
All right. Thank you, Trip. Okay, so I am going to talk about why we've decided to simplify this process. So the previous process...
Jennifer, check your microphone, please.
Oh, okay. It's saying that my mic is on. Can you not hear me?
We can hear you. I can hear you. This is Donna. I can hear you.
Okay. Can everybody else hear? I'm assuming everybody else can hear me if Donna can hear me.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so why simplify the process? The previous process required SFAs to fill out the MCQWs, those were the meal component and quantity worksheets, plus submit a nutrient analysis of menus using a USDA approved software program. But as we all know, a lot has changed in the technology landscape of school nutrition. Now there are many options now available to ensure menu compliance. So we want to make sure that SFAs are able to use the technology that they have available to them to certify their menus, but we also want to provide an option if they do not have a technology system, and this is where the USDA worksheets and simplified analysis comes in. So what will change? We will no longer use the MCQWs and will begin using the USDA certification worksheets starting this school year, 24-25, to demonstrate meal pattern compliance. But we will also accept certification documentation from your USDA approved software program if it provides sufficient information. This information does not necessarily have to be in the same format as the USDA worksheets. We know that all software systems do it a little bit differently. So as long as it is one of the approved softwares and you're able to get the necessary information, that is all that would be required. Okay, so now we are going to talk just a little bit about when our menu is certified for compliance by the state agency. Okay, so when do you have to turn menus in to be reviewed by the state? So one instance of this is when a new sponsor applies to operate the National School Lunch Program. Another instance would be is if you are a SFA that uses a caterer. If your catering contract were to change, it would be necessary to recertify the menus. The second instance would be during an administrative review or when requested by the state agency. So there may be certain situations or certain times when you might be requested to submit your menus for certification to the state. On the other hand, when should SFAs check their menus for compliance? So even though you guys may have remembered in the past we were submitting menus and checking for compliance once or twice a year, we're no longer requiring that. But SFAs should be checking their menus periodically to make sure that they comply. And specifically, anytime there are significant changes in the menu or recipe ingredients. So, so not necessarily if you're just swapping out an entree or swapping out a vegetable, but if you're making, significant changes to the menu, then you want to just go ahead and run it through either the worksheet with the nutrient analysis or your software to make sure it meets the standards. And just a note on this documentation does not need to be submitted to the state agency unless it's requested. And then the second instance could potentially be, it could be requested during a technical assistance visit. All right, I am going to pass it back to Tripp, and he's going to talk to you about the hows of menu compliance.
Thanks, Jennifer. So these are a couple of brief steps that have a lot of subparts to them. Then we'll talk about how you check for meal pattern compliance. Step one, and this is the same as it was for those of you who were here when you originally certified your menus as compliant, or for those of you who have been through an administrative review and you're gathering your documentation to complete a meal component form of some sort. From this point forward, either this tool that we're going to be reviewing today or the tool that you have on your USDA approved software. So the first step is to gather this information. We certify menus based on 1 week, and that's either for breakfast or for lunch, and for lunch, and then also for the grade groups that are involved. We also need to know portion sizes for all of the reimbursable menu items. That is very important, and as you'll see as we actually work through a small example using the form itself today. We need contribution information for all of the menu items. We get that information from CN labels, from USDA fact sheets, also from the food buying guide, and maybe even product formulation statements. So we need to know how a menu item contributes to the component of the reimbursable meal. We also need standardized recipes. Standardized recipes not only have instructions on how to prepare the meal, it also has quantities. There should be information on your recipes that show the meal pattern component contribution, as well as the portion size and the number of portion each recipe will yield. We also need the planned quantities from the production records. So production records are necessary. We will use the planned quantities when we're working on the when we are working on the nutrient analysis. Some other resources that you may find useful, especially if you're a menu planner, the food buying guide is a must, and the food buying guide calculator is helpful for some, and the vegetable subgroup list can be valuable as well when there's a question about how your vegetable that you're menuing contributes to the vegetable subgroups. All right. And Jennifer, I'm unable to advance slides. I apologize.
Okay, it's gone to the next slide that you
Okay,
need.
good.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more of a delay than earlier. Okay, thank you. So step two is to choose your certification method, your option. There are three options that are available to you. The first option is using the USDA certification worksheet. That's the certification of compliance worksheet, and that's what we are reviewing today. And using the simplified nutrient analysis that's attached to that workbook. We'll review that in just a second. Option number two is to use the USDA certification of compliance worksheet, which we're reviewing today. And then use your local USDA approved nutrient analysis software. Option number three is to use both of your local USDA approved tools. So you may produce that with your software. You can produce the certification worksheet and you can produce the nutrient analysis. Most of the time, a nutrient analysis is not required when we are asking for information. However, there is always the potential that an analysis would be requested. Please have the capability and the know-how to produce a nutrient analysis. Okay, let's talk about these options a little bit more in detail. So in order to use option number one, the School Food Authority would gather 1 week of menus and all of the supporting documentation for each meal and grade group. So breakfast and lunch, and then all of the grade groups that are used to plan those menus. There would be one Excel document. That's what this tool, this certification of compliance worksheet, that's what it produces, is an Excel document. We would have one Excel worksheet for each meal type and grade group. And if a simplified nutrient analysis is required, if we're doing a menu certification, then a nutrient assessment would be required, and you can use the simplified version that is attached to this tool. That is acceptable from USDA or by USDA. And then option number two involves using the USDA tool, this certification of compliance worksheet, along with your own local USDA approved nutrient analysis software. So we would gather the same materials. We would get 1 week of menus for each meal type, breakfast and lunch, and then all of the grade groups that are used to plan those menus for those meals, either breakfast or lunch. And then what would be submitted would be the Excel document for each one of those menus that's planned, and that comes from this tool. And then the analysis for each one of those menus, for each one of those weekly menus, from your own local USDA approved software. And we'll talk a little bit more about the USDA approved software products that are out there in just a moment. And then the third option is to do everything with your local software. We would again gather all of the week's menus and we would have all of the necessary information for the data entry for either breakfast and or lunch, and then all of the grade groups that are used to plan those menus. Then you would submit a certification worksheet from your approved software, and the format will be different than what you see. The format will be different probably from all of the different local USDA approved products, software products that you're using. But as long as you can produce a a summary that shows that daily and weekly requirements were met, not only for components, but also for vegetable subgroups and for making sure that the juice rule is met. Remember the 50% juice rule and the 80% requirement for whole grains, and as well as the 2-ounce equivalencies for desserts for the grains. So anyway, you would submit that worksheet along with a nutrient analysis for each one of those meal types and the grade groups that correspond to it. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Jennifer, and we're going to take a little bit closer look at the USDA certification resources and the worksheets. Jennifer?
All right, thanks, Trip. So I am going to click on this link, and you guys are going to be able to have a copy of this, these slides, so that you'll have these links. But I just went straight to the Certification of Compliance page of the USDA website. Can everybody see that? Can you see that, Trip? Did it go for? I'm sure
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so and there, so we do have links to this on our website, on the NCDPI website, but you can also just Google USDA menu certification, and it'll bring you to this webpage. So I just want to start and just point out some resources that are on this page. So there's quite a bit of resources as you go down. The main ones that we're going to look at today is we're going to look at the certification worksheets. So we're going to come back to that in just a minute and take a closer look at those. But I also wanted to point out on the website our, before we talked about how USDA has certain certified software programs for doing the menu, the component analysis, and then also the nutrient analysis. So I'm just going to click on that little link right there, and I'm going to scroll down. And so what you'll see here, these are a list of alternatives to the USDA certification worksheet. So if you have any of these software programs, then you can submit certification worksheets from your software, because these are the USDA approved ones. I'm also going to go back and it's pretty much the same list, but there's also, actually maybe it was from this, there's also a list here of the USDA approved nutrient analysis software. So they kind of separate them, but it's pretty much the same list. So this is a list of approved nutrient analysis software. So again, we accept any documentation that you get out of these software programs. But we're going to focus right now on the USDA worksheets. So we're going to go back and take a look at pull up one of the worksheets here. So right in here are the worksheets. We've got 3, 4, 5-day worksheets. So most of us are going to be using the 5-day certification worksheets. And then you see that it's going to have you choose your meal and your grade group. So just for demonstration, we are going to just do a lunch worksheet, and we're going to do the grade 9 through 12 worksheet. And so Trip is going to go through this worksheet. Trip, do you want me to go ahead and download the file for you?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd like to try and share my screen if I could.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be such a delay.
Okay.
So I'm going to hit share my screen real quick, and let's see if we can get mine to come up. Are you able to see the worksheet?
I think you're still maybe seeing mine. It didn't seem like anything changed, but
okay.
I can see it, Trip.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I just stopped again.
Okay.
Because of the delay. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to go back to the PowerPoint slides here in just a second, because
Okay.
I think the same thing happened just now that happened earlier with Jennifer's screen.
Okay.
But for right now, because I do have it loaded and we can continue, I'll go ahead and start. So
It's back.
okay, thanks.
Mhm.
We may have difficulty, Donna, finding the slides, the couple few remaining slides after this, though, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Okay, so the page that Jennifer was just on, and she clicked on the 5-day 9/12 lunch. This is the document that will, this is the workbook that will open up. And so it's organized very well. I applaud USDA for this. They the instructions are the first tab that are going to open for you, and the instructions are very self-explanatory. All you have to do, sort of, is read through them. It is very clear to me as a former menu planner, all of the information that you need to have present with you. And you'll see there at the very top, it says, this is what you need to complete this workbook. You need a week's worth of menus. You need portion sizes for everything. These were in the slides that we just covered. You need contribution information. Pardon me. You need contribution information for all of the menu items that are on your menu. You need standardized recipes, and you need production records. So there's a little bit of background work that has to be done before we start entering data, but it should be stuff that you have very easy access to. And I'll scroll through here, and we'll just take a peek at just a couple of the instructions. We've got crediting considerations, things such as some vegetables and fruits don't credit on volume as served, like meaning that 1 cup doesn't always equal 1 cup. And you can think of raw leafy greens as my favorite example. Raw leafy greens credit at half the volume served. And so we need to know these things as we are entering in information, because we are given explicit details how to enter a leafy green. Then we talk about entering all meals, and we're actually going to demonstrate that. There is an all meals page where we do enter exactly that, all the meals that are planned for the week in question. And as we scroll down, there are some considerations about meat alternate. We only count to the nearest quarter ounce. We always round down. We never round up. There's some considerations for grains, as you see there, and all of these are color coded, so it's much easier to see. Fruit is in purple, talks about considerations for accrediting fruit, vegetables. And then there are some instructions for those of you who may have a salad bar about the optional page, which is the weekly vegetable tab. And we'll take a peek at that quickly as we pass by it. We're not going to do anything with it today. And then it talks about some little tidbits and some shortcuts and some considerations for selecting meals and vegetables each day of the week. So really, really good, thorough instructions. And then finally, the weekly report. Most of the highlighted or different colored, underlined words that you see are hyperlinks. Some hyperlinks take you outside of the program. There's a hyperlink in here for the food buying guide, for instance, and it'll take you to the USDA web page for the food buying guide. Other hyperlinks are hyperlinks within the workbook itself. So you can jump back and forth, and I'll show you that when we get down to the weekly report. We're going to jump back to a day just to demonstrate. So that's the first page. That's the first tab. It's instructions, lots of them, easy to understand in my opinion. And then we'll go on with the next tab. The next tab is School Food Authority notes, and that's just exactly what it is. It is notes that you might need as you are working on this for your 9/12 lunch. So that's simple enough. And then here's the all meals page that we were talking about. I'm not used to seeing that gray area right there, but boy, it is there, isn't it? Okay, see if we can make that go away somehow. Oop. Okay, there we go. All meals. Now, like I was talking about earlier, you do have to gather all of your information. So you have to have recipes, meal component contribution, production records, and serving sizes. We need to know all of these things. Hopefully most of that stuff's contained in your recipes. And so what USDA asks you to think of, or how they ask you to think, is to say, okay, I've got we're on the all meals tab. So I'm not just doing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'm doing them all. So I'm looking at Monday, and I've got my menu in front of me. And I say, okay, on Monday, what are the options that a student has? Now you have to put yourself in the shoes of a student. And so I go into the serving line that I'm thinking about, and I get my tray, and then I proceed down serving line. What items do I have available to me? So here's a thought experiment. I don't have anything written down. We're just going to put something down. So let's say, for example, one of the entree choices of that particular day is a cheeseburger. USDA asks that you name every meal, and I love this idea, based on the entree or the center of plate item. And so on Monday, I'm going to do cheeseburger because that's one of the things that a student could potentially select if you're offer versus serve. If you're straight serve, they would certainly get it. So there's my cheeseburger. I'll raise that up just a little. Yep. These top headers are frozen. They're locked in place. So forgive me. I can't move them around at all. And then in that cheeseburger meal, as I go down the line, I'm going to answer these questions. It says, okay, what ounce equivalencies of meat alternate are involved in this meal? It says enter the total number of meat alternate ounces offered with this meal. Well, it's just the cheeseburger. There are no other items on the serving line that contain meat or meat alternate. So I've got a 2-ounce patty and a 1/2 ounce equivalent from the cheese. So that's 2.5. So I'll write 2.5. I'll type in 2.5. And then the next one is for grains. And it says, okay, please enter the total number of grains in ounce equivalencies, including the whole grain rich desserts that are offered with this meal. Well, on this particular day, I'm not offering any desserts. And the only bread grain that I'm offering is from the bun on the cheeseburger. And that's a 2-ounce equivalency bun. So I'm going to put down 2.0. Actually, this thing will take 2 and it'll add the decimal places later. Then column 3A says, okay, so of the grains that were offered in this meal, enter the number of ounce equivalencies that are whole grain rich. Well, this hamburger bun happens to be whole grain rich. So I'll simply type in 2 here to let the system know that I've got whole grain there. And you can already see that this is the data that the worksheet will use to calculate whether or not you're hitting the 80% whole grain requirement. So we have to answer that. I'm not offering, the next column says, how many ounce equivalencies or grain-based desserts are you offering? Well, none. So I'm going to leave that one blank. And then for fruit, it says we're measuring this in cups. And it says, so select the number of cups of fruit, including the fruit juice that's offered at this meal. I'm not offering any juice. Let's say that I'm doing applesauce and fresh pineapple, a 1/2 cup portion each. So I'll do the total for that. The total for that is 1 cup. I'm going to add the 1/2 cup and the 1/2 cup together. I'll scroll down here and get my 1 cup. And then the next box asks, hey, how much of this was fruit juice? Well, there's none, so I'm not going to enter anything in here. You can see that this is how we're going to determine whether or not the 50% juice rule is being adhered to. For vegetables, let's think of something that would pair well with cheeseburger. Baked beans and fries, a 1/2 cup portion each, okay? So I've got a 1/2 cup of one vegetable, a 1/2 cup of another vegetable for a combined total of 1 cup rather. And I'll scroll down, find the 1 cup. I thought I was finding the 1 cup. Find the 1 cup and enter that in. And then it says, how much fruit juice did you serve out of that 1 cup? Well, none here because it was baked beans and fries. So we'll just go along with that and just skip right over that one rather. And then finally, it says, how much fluid milk did you serve in cups? Well, each carton is 1 cup. I'll enter the number 1 there and we're finished. And you would do that with every single meal that was available during that week. Once I fill up all of those meals on the left-hand side here, and I'm going to name them, remember, using the center of plate as my meal name. I'm finished with that. And now I can move on. You're pretty much finished with all of your data that you've gathered as well, except for the nutrient content. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So I've gotten, I know what components are. I know what the portion sizes are. I've entered all this information, and I'm ready to move on to daily. But before we do, we're going to stop here real quick on the vegetable bar. This tab is for the folks who have vegetables that are served, the same vegetables that are served every day. That doesn't necessarily mean a salad bar, but it could. It could mean I've seen some folks who offer broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots daily. And so if you do that, this is a shortcut way of putting all that in so that you don't have to enter it on every single day. And that's the purpose of this tab. Now we're going to go on to the Monday tab. So the Monday tab, looks like this. The Monday tab looks like this. And here you're going to enter the meals, the menu names that are available to students on this day, so Monday. And this is where all of the data entry that you did on the All Meals tab comes into play. When I use this drop down menu right here, you'll see cheeseburgers in there. And remember, we named one of the meal that we entered, the cheeseburger meal. So when I click on cheeseburger, all the information that I entered is automatically populated into the worksheet, and it goes across. All of the green stuff is good, which is normal, I guess. It says that we're meeting certain requirements, certain daily requirements. So this is a good thing. We like to see the green. If there's red, we would have to stop and address it. So now we've done that on Monday. We've told the system, hey, these are the components that we've got. Now we've got to add a little bit of detail. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the end. And it says, let's talk about milk real quick. What milk are you offering? Well, let's say I offered 1% unflavored, and say I got a red. I'm only offering one. So hopefully when I offer another, I'll be good. And then I offer 1% flavored. Aha, we've got green. Now, if you'll remember, we do also have to provide unflavored milk. One of our two choices, and we have to serve a minimum of 2. You can serve more. At least one of them has to be unflavored. And so what happens when we choose another flavored milk? Excuse me, I've still got 2 varieties of milk, but both are flavored. So we've not met the rule of the requirement of providing at least one unflavored. So I get my red. So this is how the red notifications can help you. So I'm going to unclick that again and say, hey, we've got unflavored, and it'll tell me we're doing okay. Now I'm going to scroll over, and this is the last little bit of data entry that we have to do on the daily. And remember, I said that we were going to serve baked beans and French fries as the vegetables, the vegetable offerings for these students. So over here is where I'm going to tell the system, hey, listen, the largest amount of beans or peas or lentils that a student could select on Monday is a half cup portion. So I'm going to choose the half cup. And there it goes. I'll choose the half cup. And then down here, if there were to be more, I would have to tell the system, hey, these are the different variations of the beans, peas, and lentils that I'm providing. But in this simple example, we've decided to serve baked beans, which is a navy bean, a white bean. So I'm going to scroll down to white bean. And if you don't see exactly what you're serving, there's a catch-all. It's beans, peas, unspecified. So don't panic if you don't see the actual bean that you're using. And then I'm going to tell the system, hey, we're doing a half cup portion size for this. Hopefully that'll populate. It did. When I selected that, I got a gentle reminder that says, hey, if you're crediting vegetable if you're crediting these beans as a vegetable, you don't credit it as a meat alternate as well. Okay, fine, we're good. That's all that says. And then the last thing that I have to put in are the French fries. So that's our starchy vegetable. That was a 1/2 cup portion size as well. So I'm going to populate that with 1/2 of a cup. And I have to let the system know that this is the starchy vegetable that I'm using. And that's a potato, of course, French fry. Oops, not parsnip. There we go. Potato there. And the portion size of those potatoes was 1/2 cup. Again, this is a simple way of doing this, or a simple example. And we can always discuss more complex things later. Okay, that's it. So I've got my vegetable subgroups. I've told the system what milk I'm doing, and it's telling me that I have met my daily requirements for those different components. I would do that with every single meal. All of the meals that I put in earlier in the All Meals tab would be listed here in this drop-down menu. And so on Monday, I would go select the meals that were available on Monday, and then again on Tuesday, and on, all the way through Friday. And when I'm finished with Friday, I'm going to tab down here to the weekly report. When I'm finished entering on Friday, I can click on this tab that says weekly report. And the weekly report looks like this. I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller because you're going to see this. Hopefully you'll see this in just a second on one of Jennifer's slides. This is the meal component report that you would submit right here. This takes the place of the old meal component and quantity worksheet. If your system produces a form similar to this, again, doesn't have to be the same format, but it does have to provide the same information, then you're good. And if you're using USDA approved software, it'll be okay. One of the things that I do want to bring to your attention is that I've got a whole bunch of red in here, and that's because we haven't finished entering all of the meals yet. But I do have some green. We actually met the vegetable subgroup for beans, peas, and lentils on Monday, so I automatically got that red yes column that we're compliant. We've met our weekly requirement. Likewise on starchy, I've also done that because we did a 1/2 cup of French fries, and so that met the requirement for the week. So that's really good. Now, since I do have some red, for instance, here on Tuesday, I'm going to go up here on Tuesday, and I've got some red. I don't have enough minimum vegetables. So instead of scrolling all the way back through, I can simply click on this hyperlink, and it'll jump me back to Tuesday, and I can work on that sheet and hopefully make necessary adjustments to bring the meal pattern of the menu back into compliance. And then when I'm finished, I can use this hyperlink and go back to the weekly report. Really fantastic feature, easy to move around in, and that's the way that those are completed. Now, one last thing. If a nutrient analysis is required, and this works for everybody, whether or not you have software or not, you can use your software. USDA recognizes this next thing that I'm about to demonstrate, and this is the simple nutrient analysis. They recognize this as a nutrient analysis, and we're going to go through that here real quick. Same format. This is part of the same workbook, but it is a totally different tool. So we begin with instructions. The instructions are very self-explanatory. We do have some hyperlinks, as you can see down here, and they'll come up here. The fruit, milk, and vegetable subgroup. This takes you outside. It takes you to the list. I think that's the one that takes you to the outside list of vegetable subgroups. But we do have hyperlinks within this, and then some considerations for all of these different meal components that you see, the fruit and the milk, vegetable subgroups, and then main dish. Simplified nutrient data entry, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the main dish nutrient data entry. These are the only nutrient data points that you will record in this simplified analysis. So you must have a recipe. Hopefully we'll have this information, and hopefully the recipe is correct. Or you may have to build it with using product formulation statements or cut sheets from the manufacturer or something. But we'll demonstrate that here in just a second. So we have our instructions, and then our whoops, sorry about that. Our simplified nutrient analysis looks like this. The meals that I have typed in will already be here. So if you can see that, I know that's probably pretty small on your screen, but right here it says cheeseburger. All of the other meals that I have entered will also be in this form. And what I have to do is I have to take this main dish item and enter the calories. So I need to know the calories for, and again, this should be on your recipe, but I need to know the calories for the cheese. I need to know the calories for the hamburger patty and also for the bun, because this is one, I'm serving this all together as one. It's my main dish. And these are the total calories for all of those ingredients for that particular recipe. So scoot over here a little bit. Main dish. Column M2 for main dish says the part of the meal associated with the information entered in columns M3 through M5, which is where we're going to put in all of our nutrient markers. And we're going to do that again here in just a second. But this is going to be the same thing. I'm going to enter in cheeseburger because these are the data points that I'm putting in. So the data points for a cheeseburger are as follows. The calories for that, well, that's 427 calories. And the saturated fat level, according to the documentation that I will have on file, if somebody asks, how did I get this number, is 3.6 grams of saturated fat. You do not have to enter units of measure here. It's automatically assumed and says so at the top of the column. As a matter of fact, if you do try to put a unit of measure in, it will not accept it. And then sodium in milligrams. How much sodium is in this cheeseburger? Well, according to all the documentation that I have, there's 426 milligrams of total sodium for that item. And then this is where our production records come into play, because we need to know the planning number. Again, remember, we do a weighted analysis. And so this system does too. And it says, well, how many of these are you going to serve? And according to the production records, our planning is for 170 of those to be served that day. That's all the data entry that you have to put in as far as numbers go. But I'm going to swing back over here to the right. Actually, let me point this out quickly. We have an other items. This is for things like condiments or items that don't contribute, freebies, if you will. If you were to give a small cookie to the class or to the school on a particular day, you would still enter the nutrient information and the item here in these columns. And then we've got some optional tools over here that I'm going to pass on for right now, because these are the ones that we do have to answer. These are on the far right-hand side. And we'll just go through a couple of them, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Jennifer. We've already discussed. We've already done some of our milk, but it asks for entry again. Let's start with fruit. It says so the fruit that's offered throughout the week with added fat, and then you have different radio buttons that you select. And your options are less than 30%, 30 to 70%, or more than 70%, or you say no fruit is offered. Well, you have to offer fruit, so I know that's not going to be correct. And here in this example, we did pineapple and I think applesauce, if I remember correctly. There was no added fat to that. It wasn't part of a cobbler or a crisp of some sort, no baked apples or anything like that. So I'm going to select less than 30%. Of the total fruit offerings had added fat in them. Then it's going to ask how much fruit was offered over the course of the week that had added sugar in it. Same deal. This wasn't sugar added stuff. There was no dessert type fruit offered right here. It was all canned or fresh. And so I'm going to say less than 30%. And so you answer questions like that on the left-hand side here. You answer questions about milk and the other components, vegetable subgroups, the red-orange subgroups, and likewise. And so once we're finished with that, and we've answered all of those questions, and we've put in all of we've got some sodium information down here. How much sodium do you use? And in what form do you add it, or is it available? Once we've got all of that information in, here is in the center with the red and the green, this is our simplified nutrient analysis. The whole form, excuse me, I'm going to just back out so we can see everything. Whoops. The whole form is way up there. And the information that we're really looking for is summarized here in this small box. And so this is our simplified nutrient analysis. And you can see that currently I'm doing pretty good. I've got 2 out of 3 that are green, and I've got 1 red box. And that 1 red box says the estimated calories are not within the required range. I have not met the minimum calories. I wouldn't worry too much about the maximum calories, just worry about the minimums. But right there's our simplified nutrient analysis. And that's a brief overview of how you enter data and how this simplified nutrient analysis presents itself once you've completed it. I'm going to attempt to turn this back over to Jennifer, and I'll stop sharing my screen. And let's see if we can perhaps get the PowerPoint back up. Jennifer?
Can you see mine now?
I cannot personally.
Okay.
No.
I may need to go. Let me go back in and say share screen. I am going. Share content. Okay. Does that, all right, now can you see it?
Not yet.
Okay, let me look and see here. Okay, share. Share screen.
Okay, it's coming up now. There you go.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, so now this is just a screenshot of the meal component results part of the spreadsheets. So again, this isn't the nutrient analysis, this is the meal component part, but it is showing the you can see on here, it makes it evident, you know, like these are some good results here because you see a lot of green on the form. There's another example here where you see some red. So in those instances, you're going to want to go back and find out what you were missing and what you need to do to correct your meal pattern. All right. So now we're going to just talk a minute about what's next. So we will continue to have trainings on use of the USDA worksheets. And one of those places that we're going to do that is during the Fall Administrators Conference. So I did put a link in here that is from our website that just shows you the where to sign up for that conference. I don't think there's an agenda quite yet, but there's information on the website on the conference. And then we're going to take some questions here in just a minute, but after the presentation, if you do have any questions, if you're trying to decide which tool to use, then you can reach out to your area nutrition consultant. They've all been trained on, everybody's been trained on this process, so they should be able to help you either work through the tools or decide which tools you're going to use. So right now, I think we will open it up for questions. And I guess we can start, Donna, and see if there was any questions in the chat box.
Actually, we don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay, if you do have questions and you want to just kind of quickly put them in the chat box, we can also, you can raise your hand and we can, I think we can let you turn your mic on if you want to ask a question too. It should allow you to do that. Are there any questions from anybody?
It doesn't appear to be any questions.
All
Oh,
right.
wait. We just got one. Just got
Okay.
one. Is Link Nutrition -Titan and approved USDA software? It was not on the list.
It is on the list. It may have said Meals Plus link, but it is on there, so it is approved. We can go back and double check that it's on that list, but I know that it is an approved software.
Okay, for the person asking about having access to watch this meeting, I will download the video as soon as possible, and we will make it available via the website, and we'll send notification as soon as it's ready to go. And I will try to do that by tomorrow. How often do we need to do this certification?
Actual menu certification itself was done back in 2012, and so menus have been certified. So an actual menu certification is not necessary in order to receive the 9 cents additional reimbursement, and that's the performance-based reimbursement. There may be during an administrative review, if the school food authority is determined to be at high risk for meal pattern noncompliance, then and we will know that before we come on site, then we will request a nutrient analysis. USDA does say that school food authorities are responsible for ensuring that all components are served both daily and weekly, and that those meals that are served are follow nutrition standards as well. So that is a requirement. As a state agency, we're not asking for that currently. However, it is best practice to know that the menus that you've planned to serve do meet not only component but also nutrient content requirements. So I hope that does answer your question a little bit. We would like for you to know what your menus do and and where they fit within as far as compliance goes, but we are not currently asking for that. We will ask for a meal component worksheet of some sort, either the certification of compliance worksheets that we've demonstrated today that shows meal components themselves, or we'll ask for your software produced version of that equivalent before we come on site for administrative reviews. And we may during technical assistance reviews go, this menu plan is a little bit off. Let's complete one of these and see how it fits, and then we'll ask you to complete one. I hope that answers your question sufficiently.
And I'll just add too, I
Sure.
think we mentioned this earlier, that you do, as part of the application process, you are signing the attestation that you are meeting the meal pattern. So to be able to do that, you probably need to do some type of analysis of your menus.
Yeah, and new sponsors certainly would have to do it start to finish, the whole thing. And then caterers, if a charter school or any other school for that matter uses a catering company, if a catering company that does not have school nutrition background comes in, then we would do the whole thing from start to finish. The caterer has to demonstrate a working knowledge of the school meals requirements, the components, and the nutrient requirements as well. If the caterer is quote unquote new to the school food authority, but has already had menu certified in the past few years, then the caterer could produce those certification documents. So that's another time that they might need to do menu certification.
Okay, thank you. Next question for the condiments section. Do we add condiments for the side dishes like tossed salad, or is it just for main entrees?
I would have to check the instructions, because in the past we've done it both ways. We've included the condiments, say for a tossed salad, and you get one packet of dressing. And usually that's ranch. It is in this house anyway with my son. But you could include that in the recipe if you like. And then we've also, for folks who have bottles, and students are allowed to free pour, then you get a beginning inventory, if you will, quantity, and an ending quantity, and you figure out how much you've used, and then we can enter that in there as well. But the short answer is that condiments have to be accounted for because they do contain the things that we're measuring. They do contain sodium a lot of times. They, of course, contain calories. And eventually we're going to start monitoring added sugars and things like that. So condiments do have to be accounted for in some way. I just have to check the instructions to make sure that I could guide you in the appropriate way.
Okay, thank you. Is the forecasted number per school or per district?
That's an excellent question. I don't think that I know the answer to that one either. I would have to double check. My assumption is that if you're serving this menu, it would be across multiple schools, that it would be for the district, because that's what we're asked to measure. We're asked to measure the specific menu for, let's say, lunch that you're offering to the K-8 grades. And so we would need to know what anybody who's using that menu, whether it be a middle school or an elementary school or a K-8 school for that matter, we would need to know those quantities. So I would guide you to do a total for all schools that are using that menu, and then I'm definitely going to double check to make sure that that's accurate.
Okay. Next question. During an annual review, what does the timeline look like for submitting a nutritional analysis if you have submitted a compliant software produced MCQW?
Okay, so I don't know about annual review, but if you're talking about administrative review, the only time that we're going to ask for a nutrient analysis, we no longer require a nutrient analysis as a state agency. If you'll recall, we used to require 2 per year. Then we went down to 1 per year for the same criteria: grade group, meal, breakfast or lunch. And we did ask for those. And we asked for a school. We just simply asked for one school. Pick a school that uses this. Show us that this meal, that this planned meal meets nutrient targets. And so we no longer ask for an annual. If during the off-site portion of an administrative review, which is every 5 years and not annually, questions are answered such that it causes the system to identify the school food authority as high risk for non-compliance, we would ask for a nutrient analysis. You receive instructions to begin doing these things about 8 to 12 weeks before the actual on-site. So there's ample time to produce a nutrient analysis. And if that doesn't answer your question, please ask it again with a little more clarification. I'll be happy to expound on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. If we have several main entrees offered daily, like at the high school,
Mm-hmm.
do we each main dish item choice for the day on the component sheet, or do we just do the featured menu item for that day?
No, it would be that's an outstanding question, and thanks for asking it that way too, and asking that one. It would be for all, and so if you'll remember, the USDA, this is my interpretation after I read the instructions. If you'll put yourself in the student's shoes and you grab your tray and you're getting ready to hit the serving line, what center dish or center of plate item what entree item am I going to choose? PB&J, grilled cheese, chef salad, corn dog, chicken nuggets, pizza. All right. All of those would be entered. And then as I have that particular item, what is available to me as I continue down the serving line? If I get the chef salad and that takes care of, let's say the crackers are included and I've got all of my vegetable, I've got all of my meat alternate, I've got all of my grain, then do I still have access to additional grains, to additional vegetables? Maybe, maybe not. I've seen it both ways. That would be reflected in the data that you enter into this your worksheet in your software or into this worksheet. But yes, we do need to see all of the different options that are available for each student who chooses a different entree item.
All righty then, thank you. I think this is maybe the last question thus far. If salad dressing is on the recipe, does the customer have to take the specified salad dressing?
I would like to see that in person, and I would like to answer that specific to that school. However, I'm gonna answer it broadly real quick. If the salad dressing is packaged in such a way that a student would have to open the package, physically touch the dressing along with other food items that are in the clamshell, the closed clamshell, and then discard it themselves before they reach the cashier, POS, then I would recommend menuing that in a different way and offering it in a different way. If we're talking about my recipe, I expect that kids are going to use 2 ounces of ranch dressing, and they get a bottle and they can squeeze it, but the kid doesn't get it. Well, it's an average anyway. So we would do a beginning inventory of the dressing and an ending inventory of the dressing, see what we use, and we would get an average for all of the salads that were served that day. And that's the data that we would enter into this worksheet. It would be the average dressing for each salad. So if there are multiple dressings that are there, we would do the same thing. We would come up with a honey mustard, a French, and an Italian, and a ranch, and we would get beginning inventories, or we would have packets and we would count. We'd kind of come up with a recipe. We could make that work, and we don't want to overburden and go, well, I haven't gotten this data in 6 months. Let's go back out and run some more tests and gather some more data and see what kind of dressings kids are choosing. We're not going to get too far down that road, but we do need to identify and document that dressing is being taken, and we try to get us how much too, and we need some supporting documentation for that too. So, ask your your school nutrition consultant to take a peek at that, and we can come up with a strategy to properly document that.
Okay, thank you. Victoria Homick has submitted in the chat. She says link/Meals Plus is considered by the USDA to be an approved software, and she also inserted a link to that list or that information.
Thank you, Victoria.
Next question. If you are going above the maximum calories for grades K-8 menu, will that be considered non-compliant?
No, that is not considered non-compliant. Now, within reason, if you're 600 calories over, we need to talk about that, because we're trying to provide a helpful and healthier meal. That was part of the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. One of their charges in passing that law, and in that we don't need to overconsume calories. However, there are times when, in order to get all the nutrients that we do need to offer a little bit more of something so that other nutrient markers will come up. So if your calories are a little bit over, no, that's not non-compliant at all. If they're 600 calories over, we would note that, and we would ask you to change the menu to bring those calories down, and we would explore some of the possibilities for that. So yes, the short answer is no, within reason.
Okay. All righty. Next question. So for clarification, on the high school entree question, would we enter each entree offered and include the vegetables on that entree that are offered for the day for each item, as well as the featured menu item to show those items are offered as choices for that entree as well? Is that correct?
Okay. So somewhere in there you said something about an entree that had vegetables in it, and it sounded like you wanted to apply those vegetables to the other entrees and that would not be correct. If I'm understanding it correctly, and I know that's hard to do in writing. But if there is an entree that contains a vegetable, that vegetable is not accessible by someone who chooses a different entree. If it's bundled together, I'm assuming. So unless that same vegetable is on the serving line and a student who selects another entree has access to it, no, you would not apply that to all the others in the meal component portion of it. So this may be this may be one of those specific questions where we may need to need to look at it or have a discussion, and I'm free to do that, and I'll be happy to do that via phone call later, just to make sure that you're understanding it and that I'm understanding the question as well. I just, pardon me, I just popped up the questions. I'm going to read that one again. So for clarification, the high school entree question, we would enter each entree offered, yes, and include the vegetables on that entree that are offered for the day for each of the items, as well as the featured menu item. I think that's a no, if I'm understanding it correctly. The featured menu item would be one of the items that didn't have the vegetable attached to it. So there would be other vegetables and fruits probably on the serving line that students have access to, and we would need to document those fruits and vegetables in this form as well, some way or another. And we can explore that. I want to make 100% sure that I'm understanding it clearly, and I think this is a discussion question. And forgive me for not being able to get to the root of that one.
Okay, so there's a follow-up to that for that same person, and okay. The very last one says, so my fruit/vegetables choices are offered for all entrees. You may have answered that already, I'm not sure.
Yep. I may not have completely, but the short answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if you have, and I'm going to go back to my chef salad example. If you have a chef salad as an entree, and your vegetables are covered in that particular entree, then you may or may not allow access to other vegetables. For simplicity's sake, and on paper, it's easy to say, yep, they've got it, because chances are students won't go, oh boy, I've got a chef salad, I would love some of that broccoli and cheese and some of the sweet potato souffle on my salad. But if they have access to it, then you can say that, hey, yes, even the kids who choose this entree did have access to the dark green and the red orange that day, and so it counts for everybody. We can explore that, but the short answer to your question is yes. We should allow fruits and vegetables if possible. And this is, of course, for the director to decide. But in my estimation, it sure does make things clean and easy to offer all fruits and vegetables to all students who select an entree or any other thing too. If you're doing offer versus serve, you don't have to have the entree necessarily.
Okay. One last thing for anyone that might be listening versus what and cannot see the chat. Just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and we will share a link with all participants following the presentation. We will also add the link to our website, as this will be a good resource to refresh your recollection of the information presented today. Thank you, Victoria, for that information. And okay, we just got another question, and I think we got about 15 more minutes. This may have been asked already, but if we have different menus such as dairy-free, gluten-free, etc., do we have to do an analysis for each menu we offer? I think you just answered this, but please clarify again. Thank you.
Okay. So it depends on why we're offering those items. If we're offering those items because of a medical statement and there is a medical need for these items for students, either one student or a group of students, no, you do not. Once we have a medical statement, the meal pattern is off. as it were, but we still try to meet meal pattern as close as we can. And that is difficult sometimes with some of the restrictions that students have. But yes, if you have a medical statement for these students and they require gluten-free because they have celiac disease, then we're fine. You feed them what they can eat, and we work one-on-one with their caretakers, as well as with school nutrition staff locally in the cafeterias, and hopefully mom and or dad or guardian will be involved with the student assistance teams meetings with other folks there at the school, so that we all understand how we're going to serve these students with these needs. We're happy to do that. So if this is because of medical statements, no, you do not have to enter that information in any of these worksheets, either your local worksheet or the USDA worksheets. But if it's a usual and common menu offering, yes, they do need to be included.
Okay. Do we have to provide production sheets to reflect these different menus?
Production records, no. Production records are not required to be submitted. The menu is, and what we'll do is we'll use the menu, and we won't ask for the one that you put on the refrigerator. We'll ask for a detailed menu. What entrees are offered, what vegetables are offered, because not all of that always fits on the menu that's hanging on my refrigerator. But we ask that you submit a menu, and then when we have the menu, we will look at the documents that you submit, and it says, hey, we had a cheeseburger on Monday. Yep, there it is on the menu. I see that. Now, where is it on the meal component sheet? And we will find all of and we will cross-reference the menu with the meal component worksheet to make sure that all items are identified and accounted for. And that's it. So no, you don't necessarily have to have the production records, but you've got them because it's a requirement. And we may ask for them from time to time, but we ordinarily would not ask for them for the meal components themselves. We just need the menu.
Okay. Not a question, but a comment. Please remember, and this is from Victoria Homick. Please remember, if you are already using USDA approved software for your menu certification and nutrient analysis, you can continue to use that approved software.
Thank you, Victoria. Yep, that's very important. For those of you who don't have access to software, or you're using something that's not approved, that's on the list that Jennifer shared with you earlier, this is what you use. You use the USDA certification of compliance worksheets. And if you need a nutrient analysis at some point, this would be acceptable. If you have access to that software and you're currently using the software, then you don't have to worry about the USDA worksheets. You can use your own things. And so when someone asks for documentation that shows meal components are met for the day and for the week of a given week for a specific menu, you can say, yes, here's the menu that I planned, and here's how that menu fits into the meal component requirements for that grade group for whichever program it is, breakfast or lunch. And that's what you use. Yeah. So a nutrient analysis is no longer required annually by the state agency. USDA asks that you are aware of the calorie content of your meals. That is still a requirement. So you should have access to nutrient analysis software. And if you don't, you do now. And that's how this works.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Yep.
We've not received any more questions. We just have one comment that says fall 2024. I'm not sure what that means, but that's the comment.
Okay. Well, about 5-6 more weeks, and yep, we're there.
And we don't have any more questions at the moment.
Donna, I'd like to say thank you very much for keeping an eye on the chat. Oh, Victoria.
Yeah,
Go
you want to
ahead.
read that? You want to read that?
Sure.
You want me to read it?
Yep, I actually have them open now. It says
Okay.
also, Victoria, thank you for this. Also, completing the certification worksheet, which is formerly the meal component and quantity worksheet, or using the approved USDA software for each distinct menu at breakfast and lunch to ensure it is meeting the daily and weekly requirements for grain, meat, vegetable subgroups when you make changes as a best practice. And that is true. So if you start out the year with a particular menu and it's set and you've already run it through your meal component quantity worksheet, or your this certification and compliance worksheet, or your local software worksheet, you say, aha, this menu fits. I've got all my vegetable subgroups. We're great. Let's roll forward. And then you don't touch it again for the year. You're doing a disservice not only to yourself, but especially to your students. Anytime that you make menu changes, please make sure that you're meeting at least the meal component requirements of the meal, and that students do have available to them at least minimum quantities for daily and weekly components. Yeah. So if you change your menus, make sure that the changes that are being made are still compliant with meal component requirements. And if possible, the nutrient analysis never hurts either. Thank you, Victoria. All right. Donna, I'd like to say thank you very much for minding the chats for us. Sure. And for assisting with getting us up and running. Sure. Jennifer Brown, thank you very much for your participation, and I'll let you say bye right after I say thank you all for joining in, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer to say goodbye.
All right. Thank you, Tripp, and thank you to everyone for participating today. And just definitely, reach out to your area consultant if you have any further questions.
We'll see you at Fall Conference, everybody. Thank you.